This is definitely the biggest project that I've done so far for this channel. Banana for scale. So first things first, I went out and bought a big old plank of wood, and I cut a hole in it for this little battery holder here. It's going to hold 3 AA batteries. And then I'm going to super glue in here a bit of ribbon. This is from the top side, and then this will snake down to the bottom to go under the batteries so they'll be able to be pulled out easily. I've also soldered in a switch here to this whole array of control panels, whatever they're called, and the little plasma coils. So those can all get power so they can all light up and do all the fun stuff. So the battery holder is now in. I've got a couple of nails in on that ribbon to make sure that that doesn't get pulled through. I've also super glued that, getting all of these wires kind of organized, figure out where they're going to go. The switch is in place. This whole power generating apparatus needs to go here. So I'm going to figure that out, and I'm going to glue this down. So I've got these two corners of the building that'll kind of show where the building used to be. I'm going to put a bunch of debris in the center here where the power supply is, and that will actually cover my battery holder. I've also put some plastic card underneath the corners to raise it up to the level where I want the concrete, which will be the same thickness as this corkboard here. All right, let's go back in time and show you how I actually did all of the plasma LEDs and this whole power apparatus thing here. So first step is to do these plasma coils. Now I took these for the preceptor project that I did. I'll put a link to that here. Now if you want access to these 3D files for these, any code or any of the sound files that I have, you can join my Patreon and you'll get access to all of that. Now these plasma coils were about twice too long, which is kind of convenient because I cast one and I actually end up getting 2 out of the deal. So I actually set up my jeweler saw and some clamps here, and I'm just spinning this around along one of the already inherent grooves in it. And I'm going to cut through this epoxy to actually get 2 plasma coils. Then I use the same basic process to cut off kind of the handle on top of these power packs that come with this set. File that down, and then this will just glue on top of the plasma coil here and glue into it. I have a little bit of extra space. I'm going to use that to put a white LED in, and then the blue of the actual cast plasma coil will kind of impart the blue color that I want to come out of this. So I have 4 of these for the 4 different plugs that these are going to go into, and of course I've just super glued these in place. They look pretty nice, and then these are going to go into this piece here that I have a white LED in. It's just a 5mm LED that I have filed down, and oh, that's bright. And once everything's in place, you can see it actually looks pretty nice, and it's not too bright. Moving on to the fiber optics here, I've mixed up some epoxy resin. I found that's kind of the best thing to glue in the fiber optics with. Other glues, like super glue, doesn't really work well with the fiber optics. It does weird stuff. Plastic glue completely destroys it, so avoid plastic glue from touching this stuff. So putting in a little bit of epoxy resin and kind of pushing these into place. These are the little like eye holes of the servo skulls here. I've also taken a lighter to the tip of these to kind of round over the edge, which gives it kind of a lip, and it kind of balls it out a bit so it actually has a good stopping point so it doesn't end up pushing too far through. A lot of these fiber optics that are hanging out the bottom are going to go to the servo skulls and are going to get red. Some of them I'm actually going to put a blinking green and yellow LED on, so it'll go back and forth between those 2 colors just kind of innately. Don't have to do any coding for that. That's just a plug and play light. Now the way I typically get all of these fiber optic cables to come into one light like this is I actually use shrink tubing around the LED and then around the fiber optics, and that'll pull everything in. You got to be real careful with the heat so don't overheat the fiber optics, but the shrink tubing is really good at blocking the light from anything else and really sending the light just down the fiber optic cables that you want it to. And now fast forward to where we started. For the sidewalk here, I've cut out little squares of the corkboard. Now, I could have this at a different height as the rest of the road, but I want this display board to be usable with my knights as well as any of my other armies, and having a nice flat surface is actually going to be easier to fit the knights on than having different levels with the sidewalk. So it's going to stay at the same level. So I'm just going to pick away at the corkboard here around this little crater that I've made for a little destroyed bit of city. And then for the actual road pieces here, I'm just going to kind of bend it and let it kind of crack naturally a little bit. And then when I go to glue it down, I'm going to leave a little bit of space there so that crack actually is visible. If you glue it too close together, then the crack kind of disappears into the texture of the cork itself. Having cracks running kind of every which way does mean sometimes you're going to have to kind of massage the cracks to actually fit into place. Because if you crack going one way and then going the other, leaving space between them means you have to shift up, down, left, right in different directions. So sometimes you're going to have to massage them to all fit. But at the end of the day, I'm doing a destroyed city and it's not supposed to look pretty. So I'm doing this in sections and I'm using wood glue. So once I have a decent section done, I'm going to put some saran wrap down to protect the book and then lay a book over top of it to kind of press this down for the wood glue to dry. This took me a couple days to get through all of this, but it's much better to do it in sections like this than if you mess up a small section, you can rip it up or fix it as a small section instead of doing the whole thing. So after I had all of the corkboard down, I actually drilled a hole through the center of the roadway here. I'm going to put an LED behind this, and this is a little photo etch detail up bit that they have for Gundam models. I'll leave a link in the description. Really love these kind of little detail bits, but this will give me a cool little yellow light to kind of emulate the center of the street having some lights. And I'm actually going to put a flicker LED in a couple of these so it looks like some of the power isn't working very well, but the other two will be solid on. Now we get to the nice time-consuming part of doing all this dry brushing. You just got to be patient and get through it. The texture here that I've done for the kind of destroyed ruin is the same as I've done in all of my bases. I'll leave a link here. And once that's all done, we can move on to my favorite part, the road markings. Now I'm going with some white on the outside and then some double yellow down the middle. Now I found this really cool masking tape that actually has inch markings on it already, which I'm going to use to be able to actually get consistent separation in the length of the lines for the double yellow that I'm putting down. And then I'm just using some Tamiya thinner masking tape to go down the center of it to split the two lines in half. This is a super satisfying process. Everything just worked out so well with measurements, and I only really taped along this. The masking tape is wide enough that if you're careful with the airbrush, you're not overspraying too much. If you don't have an airbrush, you might want to try dry brushing the lines on over the masking tape. I definitely wouldn't put down a heavy layer of paint because it will seep under the masking tape. And that brings us to this. There is one thing I forgot to tell you about though. Magnets. These are some pretty large magnets. I've put 3 of them here in the front of the display board, and that's going to hold on my nameplates. Right now I'm building this for my knights, so I'm making a knight nameplate for my House Terran knights. But this will let me swap between my Cadian army, my Knights army, my Ultramarines army, or any other army that I might have in the future, and still have one display board that I can display them all on. And here's what I came up with for my Knights nameplate. Now, I 3D designed this and got it printed, and then I'm going to take this right here, which is the design I want on masking paper so I can actually cut away what I want. Now the ink was kind of running on this, so I put a couple coats of matte varnish on it, and that sealed it in. Now I have to go through and do all of this cutting to get this masking paper to do actually what I need it to. So all of these different designs are a little bit intricate, so this took forever to cut out, but I'm really happy with the end result. And that end result actually turned out to be me winning Best Painted at a local tournament. This is what I took to the tournament. I went 2-1. It was just a one-day tournament, but it was a lot of fun. Thank you, Waystone, for that. And I hope to do many more tournaments there if I can. I hope this inspired you to go out and make an awesome display board. It really does give you some nice extra points when you're trying to go for your painting score in tournaments. I'd like to thank some of my awesome Patreon supporters, Axel, FNS Hobbies, Drew, Joshua, Dominic, and Stefan. These are the people helping me create these awesome videos for everyone. If you'd like to help out and get access to all of my files, there's a link in the description. Thanks for watching.